Hey guys, I am just doing an off-the-cuff video today. I want to start a new series that I have been thinking about for a little while, and some of you probably know that my husband and I are working on a book together. We're working on writing an epic fantasy novel, and I decided that I was going to take it upon myself to start diving more into literature and to learn better storytelling techniques, learn what I like, learn what I don't like, and what should kind of be done away with, and see how I can use that to make my storytelling abilities better. Okay, so today I kind of want to put two books that I read recently up next to each other. What I've decided to do is I have this list of like 100 classics that I put together, and I am just taking them one by one and reading them in A, B, C order, and just coming up with something to talk about based on what I read. And two of the first books that I read were The Age of Innocence and The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. So basically, I want to talk about these and just kind of compare and contrast the protagonists and what makes them likable or unlikable, because I found that if there is an unlikable protagonist in a book, I am like immediately uninterested. And it doesn't seem to matter if you get farther into the book and they kind of figure things out. It's like, I don't want to start a book where I'm not rooting for you. Or like there has to be a close character to the protagonist where like they're in it enough that I'm like, okay, I'm rooting for them. Like I at least have somebody to root for. I found this problem in like both books. Like it was kind of a big issue for me in one of the books, and in the other one it wasn't as much of an issue, and I wasn't sure why. But as I've thought about it more, I think I've kind of come to a better conclusion on why that is. So let's just kind of jump in and talk about it. Starting with The Age of Innocence, there might be some spoilers. I'm not going to go into like the crazy details, but it starts with a man named Newland Archer, and he's living in New York City in like the late 1800s, and he's like upper crust. So how he talks is kind of like, I know how things go and I'm going to do things the right way, and I'm going to basically honor my family, and I'm going to marry this girl that is, upper crust like me, and she's like the perfect match. She's beautiful. And he's just very full of himself, and he knows that he's up at the top, and he makes everybody else know it, and kind of unlikable, but you're like, okay, well, maybe he'll kind of get over that as he like meets new people over the course of the story. But when it comes down to it, like he's just unlikable, and he remains unlikable and gets worse and worse and worse and worse all the way through the book. Like you're just, I hated him. I hated him. He was so awful. For instance, there is a moment near the middle of the book, probably middle end of the book, where he's married and he is literally wishing for his wife's death, like that she would die so that he could be free. And just as a little context, his wife is my favorite character in the book. She's actually a good person. She's trying to do things the right way. She gives him an out to the marriage before they even get married and is like, hey, you don't have to do this. If there's something keeping you from getting married to me, don't worry about it. Like you can go do what you want to do and there's no hard feelings. And he's like, nope, we're doing this. And then anyway, by the end, he's like wishing she was dead. And so he's just a bad person. He's so bad. Okay, so putting him aside for a second, let's talk a little bit about The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes and Sherlock Holmes as a protagonist. So the first thing you notice when you're reading it is it's not from his perspective. It's from Dr. Watson's perspective. So you have somebody else's perspective looking in on him and his life, and we get everything through his lens. And because he's such a likable character, he's a nice person, he's just very curious and wants to know everything that's going on with Sherlock Holmes and solving these mysteries. And he always puts him into this good light. And I think that is largely why Sherlock Holmes as a protagonist is bearable, because him on his own, he's not likable. I mean, he's eccentric, he's aloof, he's really difficult to get along with. All of the cops and whatever, the people that are working with him on all of these mysteries that have to deal with him, they don't really like doing it. And the only reason they do it is because he's gifted and he can see things they can't. He gets all these details that nobody else can seem to pull together. And so when it comes down to it, his character in and of himself, he's obnoxious and you just don't like him if it's just him you're looking at. But seeing it through Watson's lens, it's like, oh, he's like kind of bearable. Like, and he's solving all of these mysteries, so he's making people's lives better. And there are even times where Watson shows how he will work around the cops or around the law to fix something for somebody, where he can see a way to fix it that like the law will not be able to fix it. And it's the right thing to do, even though legally it's probably not the right thing to do, but he'll just do it anyway because he can see how he can do it and not get in trouble, and it's going to be better for the people who have been wronged. And so you see those little things where you're like, okay, he does have some redeeming qualities. Like, A, he's solving these murders and he's actually helping people, and he does have these like likable qualities here and there where it's like, you are so gifted and I'm so impressed that you can do that. And you're getting that all through a lens of a character who is really likable, who sees him as a friend. And I don't know, like if you're anything like me, when you talk to people and they talk about other people in really good terms, even if they're talking about somebody you don't like, you start thinking like, okay, maybe I've been a little harsh. Maybe I'm not seeing the full picture. Maybe that person's actually better than I think. And like having somebody to view through their lens where they're a good person, it really helps you to put that person into perspective in like the best light. Now, switching that over back to the Age of Innocence where you have Newland Archer, there's nobody's lens that you see him through where he's likable. So one lens you could possibly see him through is the cousin of his soon-to-be wife, who is trying to get a divorce from her husband, who's a bad person. And I don't remember if we ever find out the details of like why he's a bad person, but like bad enough that it does warrant divorce. But she's a woman, so she would just have all these lies levied against her, and so it wouldn't be worth it to try to get the divorce to go through. And so he's kind of put on the case to help her get the divorce to go through, and he's like, well, it's just not going to happen because you're a woman. But he feels bad for her because she shouldn't be stuck in that position. And he like believes things like she should be able to sleep around with whoever she wants and do whatever she wants, just like the men do, even though the men do it behind closed doors and like it's supposed to be this secret. But he believes that she should be able to do whatever she wants to do. But then he thinks about his wife and she's like, and you know, his whole idea is, but she should never be able to do that. Like she would never. And just this like ownership over his wife where it's like if she dared to do anything like that to him, it would just be an abomination. But he can do it and this other girl can do it because it's not really a problem. And so from her lens, she's in love with him and she kind of wants something to happen with him, but also she doesn't want to hurt her cousin because that would just be sad, I guess. And so maybe through her eyes, you could see like a guy that was trying to help her, but just knew that it wasn't going to happen, even though it should happen. And he kind of has this like pity for her. But then like she's not likable because she's kind of hitting on her cousin's husband. So then you go to his wife and it's like, okay, does she, like if I'm looking at it through her lens, is he a more likable person? And it's like, no. He's not. Like he's cheating on her behind her back. This is a little spoiler, I guess. She finds out and arranges things so that it's just not really happening anymore. And she makes it happen. And she talks up about him to her kids later on where it's like, he gave up the one thing he really wanted to like make our family worth it and make our family work and blah, blah, blah. And so the kids look at him like he's this honorary man, like a man of honor who deserves this, you know, I don't know, appreciation or something, but he doesn't, because he doesn't do it because he has any honor. He just does it because the whole world kind of leaves him in this like rigid society where he has to stay with his wife, and he just submits himself to it, but he doesn't like it and he doesn't really want to be there. So it's like no matter whose perspective you look through, he's just a bad person. And on top of that, he has zero redeeming qualities. He doesn't do anything nice for anybody except maybe get flowers for the girl that he's kind of having an affair with. I guess that's a nice thing to do, but like it's not when, it's not your wife. And so it's just like thing after thing. Oh, and the way he talks about his wife, he's like, she's going to think the way that I think because I think the best way. And then when she kind of has her own ideas, like her cousin does, and he seems to like about her cousin, when she kind of has her own ideas, he's like put off by the fact that she has her own ideas and she would think for herself. It's just, this book really got on my nerves. So I guess what I'm saying is if you're going to write a book, your main character, your protagonist, it doesn't even have to be your main character. I guess kind of like Watson's the main character. But your protagonist, like the hero of the story, which would be Sherlock, I think, they have to have redeeming qualities, A, and they have to, through some lens, be seen as a good person, through somebody's lens. And in Age of Innocence, you just don't get that. There's no good lens, and there's no redeeming qualities. And in Sherlock Holmes, you have both of those things. Now, book quality wise, I didn't hate Sherlock Holmes. It wasn't like, it was very mystery. Me and my husband talk about this. When you watch cop shows, it's like the same show over and over and over and over again. It's just some of the details change. And that's kind of how I felt reading Sherlock Holmes. Although I will say, like, the first one that I read was A Study in Scarlet, which talks about the Mormons out in, America. And I was a little bit curious because it was so out there. And I was like, okay, what year was this written? And what made him believe all of these things about Mormons? Because it was just funny to read. And so I looked it up, and there was like some stuff going on in Europe where it was just these stories that were like kind of out there that had come out about the Mormons, which, you know what? They're a weird people. Like, I am one. And so I get that we have kind of a weird history, but it was just so funny to read the first story and get that perspective and to just see like how it fit in with history, because they were just kind of like a fantasy people across the ocean from him that he didn't know that much about, and probably it helped for him to sell the story because it was kind of, people were talking about it. It was something that was interesting, in culture at the time. And so that probably helped him to sell his story. But they're like, it's well written. Both books are really well written. There's like great prose. There are some like ways that they describe people, both of them, but especially in Age of Innocence, how Edith Wharton describes people. Like, you can see the people for what they are, like how they dress, what they look like, what their personality's like. Like, you get a very clear picture of who these people are. So I will give that to her, absolutely. But it just didn't make up for the awful protagonist. And in Sherlock Holmes, the characters 100% are what makes the story. And I think that is why Sherlock Holmes itself has been made into so many different movies, TV shows. I mean, like off the top of my head, I can name 3 different people that have played Sherlock Holmes. I have Robert Downey Jr., Benedict Cumberbatch, Henry Cavill. Like, they've each played Sherlock Holmes in a little bit different ways, but the character stands out. And like, everybody goes to see those films because you know the character and you love just the mystery and his ability to see things that nobody else can see. And like, I don't know, it makes it a much better story. If you don't love mystery, you can still appreciate the main characters and their kind of banter back and forth and the appreciation that they have for each other and their friendship. And so that stands out to me. Anyway, that's it for protagonists and their likability today. So we'll probably keep doing videos like this. They might come out a little bit slow because I don't read super fast and I have a lot of other things going on. But I hope that you stick around and keep coming back because I enjoy thinking about the stories and talking about them. And it's just a lot of fun for me. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe. It really helps out my channel, and I appreciate all of the support that you guys give me.